flask at room temperature contains exactly equal amounts in grams of nitrogen, N2, and neon. The molecules or atoms of which gas have the greater velocity? So there's two types of problems that we do just like this. In one of them it says in grams here, in the other one it says in moles. And so just be aware about that. So as we read through, it says the molecules or atoms of which gas have the greater velocity. And when I think velocity, so the first thing I think is, okay, what's the temperature? And it says a flask at room temperature contains both of these. So a flask at room temperature contains both of these. So that means that both are at the same temperature. And it turns out that that is generally true when I ask you about velocity. Now, if they're both at the same temperature, then the heavier one moves more slowly. So now we have to determine which is heavier. N2, if we look at our periodic table, is going to be 2 times 14.01 or 28.02 grams per mole. Neon, 20.18 grams per mole. And so the heavier one is nitrogen. The heavier one will be moving more slowly, so it will have a slower velocity. The lighter one will have the greater velocity. Lighter one has greater velocity. The answer to this one is going to be neon. Now, I did not pull this one out of the homework, but there are some questions that ask you, a flask at room temperature contains exactly equal amounts in grams of nitrogen and neon. So equal grams. The molecules or atom, or sorry, which one has the greater pressure? Okay. And when you think pressure, think ideal gas law in this case, because it's mentioning grams. And I said earlier that anytime it mentions grams or moles, your first starting point is going to be the ideal gas law. And see if it works. At 90+% of the time, it is correct, but every once in a while you get a weird one that's not. Okay, so what this statement means is that all other things being equal, if there's more moles, there must be more pressure. And that's true for this problem. You'll note that it says a flask, meaning they're both in the same flask, which would mean they both have the same volume. And at room temperature, since they're in the same flask, they have the same T, which we've already discussed, which means constant, R is a constant, T is a constant, more moles equals more pressure. Any questions about that statement? Okay. Then next we have to figure out, are there more, which one has more moles? And well, if they have equal grams, you can pick any number you want and figure out the moles, or you can say, well, whichever one is lighter, if the grams are equal, the lighter one is going to have more moles. And again, so if you want, just pick 1 gram of each and figure out the moles, totally possible. But otherwise, you could say, well, more grams of something leads to less moles. Or wait a minute, more grams, more higher molar mass equals or leads to less moles for the same amount of grams. So which one has the greater pressure? The one with more moles, which is again going to be the lighter one. So the answer to this question would be neon. Anyway, I didn't even ask that question, but just in case, wanted to make sure we went through the logic for it.